Jason killing all day, board control. This is a pretty stacked 16 names
yeah,
I'm seeing here.
I'm looking at this right now. I see a lot of European names. I see a lot of, names that I definitely recognize. So it's kind of a 50-50 sword there. It's kind of like a double-edged sword.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yes.
Because sometimes it leads you to not taking a risk where you need to. You're like, well, if I get Black Knighted, I lose the game. But sometimes you just need that Lich King to stick. It's so important in those mirror matches. But that's not what we got up first. It's going to be Seiko on Shutterwalk Shaman, and Bozzzton's going to be trying his hand at Even Warlock first. And this matchup can get quite volatile where the early game is concerned.
Yeah, for this matchup, Shutterwalk Shaman sometimes can, just tempo the Even Warlock out of the game. And this looks like one of those hands that could potentially do it. Prince Khaliseth obviously is going to be a huge benefit. It means cards like Serenite Chain Gang are just not going to die to Hellfire. It means they block the Mountain Giants that much more quickly. This matchup is a little bit weird because I've played it from both sides, and honestly, from both sides, I feel favored. As crazy as that sounds, I don't know how that's possible, but when I played Shutterwalk,
that's the weight you carry with being a DreamHack champion.
There you go, admirable. That's really what I was setting you up for there, was just to kind of, boost my ego
Knocked
a
it
little
out of the
bit.
park.
Yeah, exactly. High five.
Continue your point.
Contact. But what I was going to say is, a lot of times with the Even Warlock, they try and get that early Giant down. Shutterwalk Shaman's going to be looking for that Hex, even potentially that Glacial Shard to try and stall the Giant out for quite a little bit of time. That way they can answer it with maybe a Volcano later on. And then from, the Even Warlock side, they're going to try and ration out the resources, and they're rationing out their threats in a way that it just kind of means that Shutterwalk Shaman may not be able to answer all of them. Shutterwalk Shaman has a finite amount of removal, and once that removal runs out, can't really do much.
So it really is about checking that early game and then having your checklist underway as you're moving for Shutterwalk Shaman.
Yes, Shutterwalk Shaman is a checklist. Even Warlock is a can we get rid of all their check marks?
Okay, gotcha. So really, the onus is on Seiko here to have the goods. So Bozzzton's just going to play threats as it is, and Seiko's the one who's got to answer them.
Yeah, Bozzzton is going to line up his threats, and I really like the play here from Bozzzton, which seems a little bit odd. What it was is not only did he keep Ooze, but he also delayed life tapping to get the Giant down on the previous turn to play the Doomsayer, which typically would seem weird. But Bozzzton has the mindset that Seiko is going to have an answer, and if he has an answer, there's no reason to get this Giant down when he can play Mana Tide Totem. So he set played the Ooze on the following turn to have an answer for this Mana Tide Totem.
Yeah, but Seiko's going to answer back here, perhaps with the Glacial Shard.
But since he uses the Glacial Shard, that's one less Glacial Shard that can be put onto a Mountain Giant.
It's true.
These are the kind of little idiosyncrasies that are happening early on in the game that just goes to show how much these players are thinking about the matchup.
Yeah, I have to say this is quite interesting from Bozzzton to keep on the Acidic Swamp Ooze. I think I probably would have kept it in the matchup. I'm curious how much the Doomsayer influenced the play that he took, though. For me, it's like I see Giant, I play Giant.
Yeah, seeing a Giant and playing a Giant is
good.
what Giants do. That is a good job, but like I said, Bozzzton's going to expect Seiko to have some sort of answer in his hand.
And honestly, this has panned out, I think, quite interestingly for Bozzzton, where he has, if he wants to, Defile and see if he can pick up a 2-cost card for next turn. That would enable the Mountain Giant plus 2-drop. Or you can develop the Giant and then threaten to Hellfire away Serenite Chain Gang and start pushing with that Giant as well. I think I favor the damage in this spot.
I definitely favor the damage here as well. One of the big issues with that Serenite Chain Gang play, though, is Prince Khaliseth was played. So if it's a Serenite Chain Gang...
It's a Hellfire coin, or Defile coin Hellfire then?
I think you may have to push that damage, but that feels really bad to utilize the coin that way.
Another cool thing that Bozzzton's doing here is that Giant's often going to get answered by Volcano. It's the biggest, baddest threat that you can have early on. And if Seiko's got Mana Tide Totem down, Volcano feels way worse in that kind of situation.
Yeah, Volcano is ultimately reserved for when Even Warlock plays 2 threats like a Mountain Giant plus potentially a Hooked Reaver or a Twilight Drake, just something that it can clear up. You really want to save the transform effects like Hex for something like a Dread Infernal or a Hooked Reaver because it won't come back from Gul'dan, meaning there's less pressure for you to deal with later. Right now, Bozzzton has to balance trying to ration out his threats, and I like the Hellfire here. It doesn't necessarily clear something like a Serenite Chain Gang to push damage, but it stops draw, from the Mana Tide totem, and means that Seiko may have to use a Volcano on one minion, which is a win for Bozzzton.
And that's I think, part of where it's going too. Seiko doesn't want to develop too much because the Mana Tide's there, and so the Mountain Giant's often going to have a pretty clear opportunity. And then once your opponent underdevelops, the Hellfire can swing that board back, and you put Seiko to the test of having something to handle that Mountain Giant afterwards. I think right now, with the way this game has gone, the advantage, I have to believe, is on Seiko's side. He's already got Keleseth in the pool. He's got Grumble plus Shutterwalk. Checklist is underway, and Bozzzton really has not been able to deliver much pressure.
We'll say, though, are we about to see the Black Knight onto a 0-2 Stoneclaw totem?
Well, hand space is, a bit of an issue. I think I tend to favor Dread Infernal in these situations, though. You want to start juicing the Gul'dan. You just saw a Hex, and it's a bit bigger.
It is. The one thing with the Dread Infernal is it does kind of commit you to playing something like Defile on the next turn, because the Dread Infernal will not be able to push 6 damage through unless you commit something like Defile or the Black Knight anyways.
And with the Hex picked up, is it going to be able to push damage anyway?
If you Bone Mare the Frog, maybe.
Oh, that's an excellent point, actually, is Bone Mare being in lists. I've been kind of toying with between Bone Mare and Defender of Argus for quite a while. I like them both, and I'm not really sure which one I tend to like more. I feel like that the Bone Mare packs a much bigger punch, but the Defender of Argus is just stronger utility. The Bone Mare is something I didn't really think about, and so because of that, I think the Glacial Shard Grumble is a way
I
good
really
line.
like the Glacial Shard Grumble. Not only that, but it presents a threat that basically makes Bozzzton take a step back, right? Bozzzton is at 20 life. If this Grumble connects for 8 face damage, that is half of Boston's life right now.
Yeah.
And a couple life drinkers later, maybe a Shutterwalk on curve, that could just be game ending right there.
You're thinking about the tempo swings too. If Bozzzton has coined Lich
Exactly.
King here, if he has to coin Bone Mare because that's the biggest threat, then he gets to Hex and trade with the Grumble and get a major swing on board with 4 mana afterwards even to back that up. So I think that everything kind of sat with this Grumble this turn when you look at it in hindsight.
And it's a weird way to think about these minions this way, but sometimes minions can be kind of like a threat check in and of themselves. So, for instance, Bozzzton may have to make an awkward play where he uses something like Defile or Spellstone to clear up this Grumble. That way it doesn't push any kind of damage. If he does that, he is threat checking, Seiko is threat checking Bozzzton for the turn. And that is a win for Seiko. That means he didn't have to utilize any kind of removal like Volcano or Storm, and he still stopped Bozzzton from doing what he wanted to do.
And this is pretty aggressive from Bozzzton here, the life total. He just decides to take the dip, intentionally heals for nothing, and just taunts up the 4/4 in this instance. I think that there's a really big opportunity for Seiko to try to take advantage of this.
It definitely is. Can even utilize the Earthshock in a very aggressive way by Earthshocking the taunt off of the... You talking about the 2-mana Volcano?
Ooh, yeah,
That's pretty
important.
good. That's pretty good. I was going to say that Seiko could have, tried to be very aggressive with the Earthshock, but he has not seen a single Twilight Drake right now. And the thing is, if this game goes the long run, a lot of the times, especially with the Grumble already played, it's going to benefit Seiko if he can get that Shutterwalk off.
Yeah, I think just continue the dance. I think the dance
Continue
benefits.
a little tango,
Yeah,
little foxtrot. What kind of dance are we talking about here?
Well, I don't know if you're taking salsa lessons or anything, but
Ooh, salsa.
given
King Rastakhan looks like a spicy
I'm
kind
just
of
saying,
guy.
given the plays I've seen so far, Seiko knows the steps. And I think that continuing this charade of the minions, kind of bouncing back and forth and fighting for board position does favor Seiko because of the Shutterwalk endgame.
I think even Warlock dances too. I think it's like a waltz kind of dance.
Yeah, it's a much less subtle dance.
Yeah, you think Shutterwalk Shaman's a tango?
Well, he's the...
Would Odd Paladin be like a crumper?
Shutterwalk feels like it's just crashing the party.
So it'd be like the crumper.
I don't know what that is. I'm not.
You don't know what crumping is?
I'm old. I think you forget this.
That is true.
Yeah.
Crumping is like the exaggerated like exaggerated like hip hop, like very grunge kind of style.
That sounds crump.
We're going crumping after this. We're gonna take crump classes.
I demand crumpage. My crumpage grows. Yeah, Boston's got some tough turns ahead of him. Low on threats, high on removal. That feels like always the toughest spot for an even Warlock.
This is the most awkward part. Seiko has played this in such a way that Bozzzton cannot play threats. He just physically can't. I mean, not only does he not really have that many threats in his hand, but he just can't play the threats that he wants to because he has to threat check Seiko's minions. So for instance, 2 Hooked Reavers just went checked here because of the 8-4 Grumble.
And with Shutterwalk being the last minion left in hand, is the time nigh? I mean, you're just facing down a 2-4. Wants to wait.
Why not? You got plenty of time. You got 2 Volcanoes. You got an Earthshock for the Twilight Drake. I believe the threats left are the Hooked Reavers, the Twilight Drakes, which you have Earthshock for. I believe 1 more Giant. You know, Lich King, although it's pretty bad for you.
Yeah, both hexes are down.
That is true. At least the hexes went on to very, strong minions.
And here, this is definitely, I think, the Hooked Reaver turn. You have enough health on board to force 2 actions from Seiko. And while you're quite confident he has those 2 actions, that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of overload coming to Seiko's side, and you know that, again, that both hexes are down, so it opens up Lich King for the turn afterwards.
So what Bozzzton is going to try and do here is threat track Seiko in a way that he utilizes his overload cards, meaning that eventually he cannot play Shutterwalk, and then 2 minions stick to kind of try and end the game. The only issue with that is Seiko could potentially take a turn off where he just takes damage. The Shutterwalk has 2 Glacial Shards in the pool, and it has the Grumble. The one thing I do think it's missing, though, is that Serenite Chain Gang. I don't believe 1 has been played yet, so Seiko's going to have to hold on as quickly as... I know.
We talked so much about Serenite Chain Gang, I just assumed it had been played.
You get to the stage of the game, and you're just assuming Shutterwalk's ready to go. You're just assuming the bird's ready to fly.
Spread your wings, Shutterwalk.
Admirable, permission to take off.
We're go.
We are not a go. There are no chain gangs in the pool, Admirable.
Well, the order's been given. It's too late now.
Rider, no chain gangs in the pool.
Yeah, I think the Earthshock here to try to preserve resources too. This could be quite costly given the Twilight Drake. So now I'm looking at Twilight Drake and just Gen Greymane.
That is, but I think the reason Seiko went for this is because he does have the second Volcano, and Bozzzton actually doesn't have that large of a hand size. He has a decent hand size, but it's not as 410 Twilight Drake level, so he doesn't necessarily have to save it. And there's a second copy Earthshock in the deck. He's running 2 copies to kill those bad boys. Permission to tap.
Ah, well, yeah, you can't tap because of the coin. You're able to coin back 10 mana.
Permission to tap.
And so, for Bozzzton, I do think that finding Blood Reaver Gul'dan is going to be quite important.
Yes. May even find it and then just coin it out.
9 is scary. It's not as scary against Shutterwalk. They're not exactly, beating down the door, but...
I mean, think about it. 2 Life Drinkers, 1 Shutterwalk.
Yeah, you got two juiced Spellstones in here. Fully juiced. That's 7 lifesteal.
That's quite a bit of life gain.
Yeah.
But then again, if you're playing those, you're not playing minions.
Yeah, that's why you play the minions first. You got to get the minions on board.
What happens if Seiko just doesn't play
Well,
a
if he pulls up all your minions, that's it.
What if Seiko forces Bozzzton
Oh, he's got to play a minion in order to play the Life Drinker.
Oh, good point. But if he just never plays Life Drinker?
So Bozzzton here is going to go with Lich King plus the Sun Fury Protector.
It might honestly be because he feels like one of his only ways out is to find that Death Grip in order to try and steal the Shutterwalk. Yeah. We can see Shutterwalks in the hand. Bozzzton doesn't know that.
Well, you can grip Chain Gangs too.
Life Drinker as well.
I think there's a lot of merits to the Shutterwalk. I mean, you've seen a Volcano, you've seen 2 hexes down. This is a tough one to clear. And this puts 17 health on board, but the 2-cost Volcano, thanks to Farsight, allows Lightning Storm plus the Farsight. I'm sorry, Lightning Storm plus the Volcano to happen. So you get 4 draws from Acolyte of Pain, and you get to clear the board.
And you can even lead Volcano, and sometimes the Acolyte of Pain could potentially live.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the outcome could be that Lich King just dies to the Volcano instead.
And all the scenarios work out to where the board is fully cleared. Because, only 2 health will remain. Even if 2 health is on the Lich King, Storm just clears it up.
That's right.
Oh, Acolyte living here would feel so good. Have you ever done that? Played this and then the Acolyte of Pain live?
I've never had the lowest minion live through a Volcano ever for me.
Oh, it was 1 ping off.
Wow, that little Stoneclaw Totem just dancing through these fiery raindrops.
He's playing with fire right now.
Not today, says Stoneclaw Totem.
Look, this Stoneclaw Totem really wants to get Black Knighted.
Said not today.
And it's going to get Black Knighted.
Yeah, big double threat turn for Bozzzton. He forced a lot of AoE, and it's taken a long time.
double chain gang on the follow-up next turn. They're both 3/4s admirable.
Yeah, that's a major deal. If Bozzzton can find another piece of AoE though, with Death and Decay in hand, that's going to clear all that up. But if it's not another piece here, that spells trouble.
Yeah, but even though it's just not enough damage to get through. I mean, 2 Spellstones have to be committed here. I guess the Life Tap can be fit in first, just in case you find that second Defile.
Well, would you rather Life Tap or fit in a threat?
Well, if you Life Tap and you find the Defile, you can also play the Shroom Brewer as well.
But that's the cost that comes with it. Is you gotta. It's going to cost you something. That's basically 2 mana you're not spending. But you find Gul'dan, and now it's time to look at this and go, okay, how do I win? Because the other thing, too, is, the Star Knight Chain Gangs being there, it hurts, but if Shutterwalk fails, you need to be able to clear it afterwards, too. I mean, you're at 9, so I'm not sure how liberal with the life total Bozzzton can actually, be in this situation. This might require Spellstone or require Shroom Brewer to be played.
I think the issue right now, though, is if Shutterwalk whiffs, of course, you need to be able to clear them off, but you can only clear off potentially 2 on the follow-up if you save the Spellstones, but I think that's what Bozzzton's going for here. I think he's holding on to these Spellstones for that reason.
Yeah, I think the heal on the Gen Greymane is wise, too. You still need board position. Hagatha's still a bad deal. Lightning Storm can still get you. 14 right now, I think, is plenty of life.
Still getting a little scary. But you're right. 14 right now is plenty of life.
Well, the scariness is your opponent just played 2 Star Knight Chain Gangs and deep into the deck. Grumble's already there, but there's no Life Drinker yet.
Speak to me.
I don't think you... I mean, everything is in the pool for the Shutterwalk. It's going to be the maximum it can be, but I don't think you quite want to go for it just yet.
I think the other side of the board's too big.
But there's 2 Glacial Shards in the pool.
I think it's a whiff potential, though.
The Shutterwalk's going to whiff no matter when you play it. If it whiffs...
I mean like the whiff on the Glacial Shards.
You mean on the whiff on the Glacial Shards?
Yeah, the Glacial Shards. Because you're not really necessarily gaining life from the Shutterwalk.
Yeah, because there is a weird scenario where the Glacial Shards whiff, and then they can utilize their minions to clear off your Shutterwalk minions, take you to fatigue. There's definitely a possibility that Seiko's probably going to be playing around.
And if he feels that comfortable, I think it's saying a lot of where he feels he's at in the matchup right now. Comfortable enough to take it this slow. I mean, this is dangerous.
Not even commit any kind of thing. I mean, the Storm obviously wouldn't have been, it's beneficial, but he could have gone for like a double Storm instead of playing the Acidic Swamp or the Gluttonous Ooze.
There is a Mind Control tech in the pool as well.
That is true.
So, Gul'dan gets alleviated a tad here, but this is
a lot of pressure.
Worried. Yeah,
especially with the Death and Decay being able to get through that 0-2.
Yeah.
None.
I think there's a small chance you consider the Spellstone. Oh, he's just considering threats, perhaps.
Maybe he's trying to force Seiko to try and play out the Hagatha with potentially like a Stormed Farsight or something like that. And then after he does that, he can then Death and Decay to clear out the Shutterwalks when they whiff.
I think that's exactly what he's trying to do. Is that going to backfire, though? I mean, I don't think he's anticipating Lightning Storm Hagatha.
Nobody anticipates the Lightning Storm Hagatha.
Oh, this is a
maybe
big
he
deal.
is.
I mean, this is 50% for full clear. Plus whatever the percent from the Stoneclaw Totem would be.
That's actually pretty reasonably strong.
That is
Shutterwalk
incredibly strong. Oh my!
Gul'dan's coming down.
They have been battling for board.
This is
the
how this
entire
matchup.
game.
This is how this matchup goes, though. Just constantly battling back and forth. There's a Life Drinker.
Life Drinker.
Could even put a Zola in the pool. Looks like he wants to copy the Stoneclaw, not only to get that extra spell in the pool, but also just to play another 0-2 taunt.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to have the Life Drinker in the pool, so that's getting played this turn. You see what you get from Hagatha, and you want the Stoneclaw to block, but Death and Decay.
A lot of overload with that Spellstone as well.
Yep, And there's 15 damage on the other side of the board right now.
Plus an extra 3 from the hero power. 18 damage staring down right now. Probably
The
just gonna
silence full clears
Spellbreaker-
too.
Yeah, probably just going to Spellbreaker this in order to Death and Decay and push all this damage through. I think Bozzzton realizes, like, you know, he's got to go in now. He has to push this damage.
Seiko could be in trouble here. This whole game, you know, I feel like neither player really came out too far on top, and now Shutterwalk's going to decide it.
But with the Electric Storm Surge,
Well, you know,
that could be another turn where Seiko holds off.
And with the Healing Rain, I think that this is you know, a reasonable deviation here. It's a guaranteed clear on the board.
He's just going to go for the Shutterwalk.
Wow. Uh-oh.
There's still Zola in the pool. Zola can copy the Hooked Reaver.
Yeah. Gets the Shutterwalk, though. Down to 12. The Voltaic Burst is what allows this, too, because the Hagatha damages the board. He's allowed to clear it 4 more afterwards with that.
Bozzzton is 1 off lethal right now with this Bone Mare.
Yep, and it's because of the Voltaic Burst. It allowed the clear of those extra 1 health minions. But it is a 9-cost Shutterwalk. It's not the full walk.
And he can play it next turn.
But you're at 14 as well.
And you're staring down 21 damage from Shutterwalks on the other side.
And you can't kill both. Or all 3 of them, rather.
I mean, you can kill 2 of them and then hero power the other one. That way the Shutterwalk can whiff by playing Hagatha first.
Ah.
That looks like what he may have to do.
He's going to push instead, and I don't blame him.
I mean, that's
17. That's
guaranteed lethal,
guaranteed
though.
lethal, though. Okay.
I wonder if Bozzzton had an out, though, if he went for that. Because there is potential for Shutterwalk to whiff.
Yeah, but no. Because then if it whiffs, that means your opponent's, you know, has another board of
there's
6
6
threes.
threes.
Just because, you know, threats tend to be superior when there's just an even amount of answers on the other side. Especially when the threat is so impactful in that situation.
Uh-oh, admirable.
Yeah, this is the big uh-oh for
Bozzzton
Bozzzton.
hit the matchup he did not want to hit. He does have Candle Shot in the opening hand.
But he's going first.
But he's going first, and there's double level up.
Yeah, this is going to get really ugly. You know, I anticipate Seiko hanging on to at least 1 level up. The Corridor Creeper is definitely around to stay. The question for me is 2 level ups or not. You know, there's some matchups where I don't really like to keep the buffs because I feel like the early cards are so important, but this is not one of those matchups. This is one of those matchups where I feel like your first buff is paramount to have available.
That's why I see a lot of players keep even, you know, potentially a Fungal Mancer. If it weren't for the fact that, you know, level up were presented, Fungal Mancer would be, you know, virtually key, but Cube Play Dead, maybe there's some Grizzly shenanigans that come up later on.
That definitely, I think, is one of the biggest outs, is being able to sustain yourself, get the Grizzly Play Dead going, and sometimes even Spider Bomb can really mop up boards if you get to be able to cube it. Now, this is really where I think the issue with Bozzzton going first is with this style of hand, is Candle Shot gives Seiko the ability to deviate. You know, if he had a different 1-drop to play, he can protect them all from Candle Shot if he's got
what
it.
he's doing right here.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily make the level up stronger later on, but he knows the 1/1s are just going to keep dying to the Candle Shots. The level up isn't really going to get the value that it needs.
Yeah, finds Ooze, so if it extends, you know, deep enough, I think that, well, second Vine Cleaver, but if this extends deep enough, I think Bozzzton has like some real potential here. I think the problem is going to be getting the game deep enough.
So he's going to try and trade off the Spider Bomb. Not sure if that was good or bad.
I think it's wise to trade off Spider Bombs.
I think so as well.
Because your opponent, when they get a chance to manipulate Spider Bomb outcomes, you start finding yourself in a lot of trouble. So I think that even though it hurts and it costs you a lot of board position, I think it's just wise to do so because Hunter is trying to take advantage of specific things in their deck. You know, say like Terror Scale Stalker comes down, you don't clear the Spider Bomb there. You're going to lose half your board and your opponent's still got a board set up.
Not only that, but also just, you know, the magnetic effect. If another Spider Bomb comes on top of it, it becomes instantly a huge threat.
Spider Bomb Play Dead.
Spider Bomb Play Dead.
That,
you know,
that's a
Ziliax
disaster.
onto a Spider Bomb.
Yeah. Pretty good looking raid leader here. It's going to yield a Corridor Creeper.
May even, you know, potentially consider coining out the hero power.
I would definitely coin the hero power in this spot.
The one thing I'm hesitant on with the coin hero power is you've got double Vine Cleaver in your hand, so it may be that Seiko wants to try and hold on to the coin for the Vine Cleaver into another Vine Cleaver.
Because the Blessing of Might gets picked up here.
Yes.
If there was no Blessing of Might pickup, are you seeing, or no one drop?
If there was no one drop picked up there, there is a very strong consideration for coin of the hero power. I still might hold on to it though. I think
you really
Vine
want to
Cleaver,
coin that Vine Cleaver.
I think Vine Cleaver is that powerful of a card that if you have the opportunity to coin it out, you do it. You know, of course, unless there's another play.
It's the Katharina of Paladin, so to speak.
Yes, it is the Prince Keliseth of Prince Keliseth.
Yeah, well, you know, you get 2/1/1s instead of getting a giant beast, but
they're the same thing.
Semantics. Yeah.
Apples to oranges.
Don't tell me those 1/1s aren't beasts, all right? Like every single time they get that 5-mana spot and they have a bunch of those 1/1s.
They're beasts, all right.
Oh yeah, and if
they're
not, they're
not
gonna be
beasts
training.
that get res by Witching Hour, but they're beasts.
Yeah. They're out there working hard and getting strong right now. Once they level up in your face,
they're hitting the gym.
Yeah.
They're working out.
You're not gonna like it.
They're leveling up.
And honestly, like just the pressure that the Blessing of Might applies here is really significant. Like Bozzzton normally is going to be using, you know, Cube for tempo, just to try to fight and having Sarnet Chain Gang try to fend off the board. But the fact that it's a 5-2 and a 3-5 just puts him in a really rough spot. My concern for Seiko is that the next turn is just looking really bad. Like right now, if he doesn't draw a card he can play, it's hero power go.
To be honest, Admiral,
Oh, they're 3/4 chain gangs.
Yeah, they're pretty buff, and that is not a good play. The Divine Favor, just not a good draw here. That's what I meant to say.
Is Bozzzton getting out of this? I mean, Saturnight, I literally just forgot about the Keliseth because it
Yeah, I know. It's something very minuscule. You don't
it just
think
died
about.
on the previous turn.
Will say though, Admirable, coin, Vine Cleaver. There is a. Oh, okay, never mind.
Well,
I looked up and saw Rexar, Admirable.
Well, it's a cube. It's a cube turn here as well. Like, I think Boston's turned this around. I don't think Seiko gets out of this.
I don't know. I've seen Vine Cleaver get you out of plenty of situations in the jungle.
Yeah, but you're not usually this far behind. This is way far behind.
If there was only one Vine Cleaver, I would say, you know, it's way far behind. But with the second Vine Cleaver, I think there is a realistic chance this game just keeps going.
I want you to watch this turn and tell me.
Okay, well, Play Dead just
even without the Play Dead. He doesn't even have to use the Rexar here. The second Vine Cleaver now, say without the Play Dead, it was just Ooze hero power in this spot. He clears off the board. Second Vine Cleaver gets played. You Rexar the entire board and start pushing damage.
You do.
And you get to build a beast.
But on the follow-up, there is potential for Vine Cleaver hero power level up.
The Play Dead solidified it in my mind.
To be honest, I mean, without the Play Dead, it would just be a 4-5 and a 3-3 here.
Oh, and Shaw gets picked up as well.
Shaw's pretty strong. I'm telling you, without that Play Dead, though, I think it's a much closer game than you may be giving it credit for. Because think about it, there'd be 2 less minions on the board right now.
Wow, just continues to just clear on the board.
Lost
okay,
in
well,
the jungle.
Okay, now
All right, well, for once,
these
someone
are
gets
some
a Play
fire
Dead.
draws.
Yeah, these are some great draws.
This game is nuts.
Now the
and this is
Rexar
why
just does nothing.
Well, this is why Bozzzton played the Shaw. It was so that the like anything that he gets anywhere is going to be able to start attacking immediately. He wanted the extra board presence to contest a turn like this.
He's definitely going to need it. Tracking gets picked up. Katharina would be a wonderful take here.
Well,
you ask, it comes.
Ask, receive.
I need to start doing that on ladder. Katharina would be a wonderful pickup here, tracking.
This level up just got torn apart.
Yeah, no, I think it's about over. Admirable.
It is looking pretty darn over. That is a massive board.
Those
on Boston's
draws
side.
back to back were, whew.
Wow.
They were lit, Admirable.
Tied series. Bozzzton gets the Death Rattle Hunter through, and that to me was
That's
the big,
important.
That was the big point where I was worried.
I mean, he felt favored in a lot of matchups.
You want the speed bump.
Speed bumps are good.
Slows him down.
No, I don't slow down over speed bumps. I just hit my head on the roof and keep going.
By the way, I picked up your mechanical bill for the auto body shop the other day.
How bad was it? Give
It's
it to me
not pretty.
straight. Was it because of speed bumps?
All the speed bumps. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
They get a new timing belt at least. Like, I've been needing one of those for a while. Those speed bumps are killer.
Bozzzton and Even Warlock this game, and 2 primed cards in hand. But one of the defensive choices for Seiko finds its way early. Boisterous Bard is a card that I've seen in lists before, but doesn't really crop up that often. But it's quite important in this matchup.
Yeah, Boisterous Bard is not, it's one of those cards that I would say is mostly included for something like your Silverhand Recruits value trade into your opponents, causing a huge tempo swing. But it does have a purpose in this matchup where it makes Defile a little bit more of an awkward card. This Boisterous Bard comes down next turn. Defile won't be able to clear up these 1/1s, but unfortunately for Seiko, it doesn't help as much against a Hellfire.
Yeah, and so I think because of that, this is, I'm looking at just another hero power turn here. Defile, it's going to hurt on the board, but the real turns that your opponent wants to AoE is leading into your 5-mana turns where you have your Fungal Mancer and you have your level up.
One of the best parts about this Paladin into Even Warlock is, just hero powering's enough sometimes. It is a difficult matchup and you will need added pressure later on, but if you put Even Warlock into a situation where they're going to struggle to answer the board, your hero power is enough threat turn after turn to warrant answers.
And I feel like this is like where the dangerous situations occur is your opponent gets to buff up their 1-drop with Blessing of Might and make a wide board presence all at once. So now Bozzzton's going to be in a position where he really has to take a stand. Like, which direction are you going to go? Are you going to try to clear 2 boards or 3 boards in a row? And I feel like that's always the trap that I fall into is when I try to clear boards over and over again. I think the major game plan is you have to get a threat down.
Yes.
And then you start AoEing. And because the buff has come down, it really changes the way the timing pressure works.
Yes, exactly. And the way Seiko has done this is because he knows that Bozzzton is going to want to play a Giant or a Coin Drake here. He's going to expect that. And then he's going to Boisterous Bard on the following turn, buffing this Glowtron out of range of a potential Hellfire, meaning that the Giant or the Twilight Drake would actually have to trade into it, basically, just accomplishing 2 purposes with this Glowtron.
It also takes you out of the Defile range, so your opponent can't have like a Defile Sun Fury turn and protect. I mean, Bozzzton is the hand. And is forced here to play Twilight Drake, and he knows that, but he's exploring the options. Can I clear multiple boards in a row and win? And I think the answer is no. I think you got to get something down.
I don't think he feels pressured enough to go for the Hellfire early, but wow. He's going to go for the Hellfire now. That might be because he's worried about a Boisterous Bard play.
Oh, that's true. I mean, that is a really tough time, but I think almost any way you slice it, you're going to end up back at square one.
And the biggest issue I see with this is, now that you've used this removal here, you are forcing yourself to play a threat this turn, which means your opponent has Fungal Mancer on the following turn. I just don't know how I feel about that preemptive Hellfire.
So here's the thing. This play, it does interest me because it does open up like a Defile into tap Hooked Reaver. And so the Hooked Reaver can fend off the board state while you try to make that up again. So the fact that the Hellfire is actually, the buff from Seiko's side is affecting the life total, it does turn on Hooked Reaver at that point. And so, you can make a tempo sacrifice in order to use Hooked Reaver as your major point of threat. It's, it's the big threat and the Sun Fury all in one. You just got to be low enough. That's an interesting iteration.
But with the way Bozzzton has played this out, he kind of forces himself to play a Twilight Drake now. He commits that Twilight. Fungal Mancer is waiting right around the corner. I'm actually surprised maybe Seiko didn't consider placing the 1/2s together. That way a second Hellfire couldn't potentially answer the minions.
Well, that was the thing to me, though. I'm not 100% convinced he needs to play a threat here. I can see some Defile iterations and relying on the Hooked Reaver to be the tempo swing you generate.
That is true.
But, this threatens the tempo swing right away.
I do kind of wish the 1/2s were together, though.
Well, Seiko, I think, also wants to, I think he wants to keep any of the chains of Defiles from going. I think he's less worried about Hellfire.
That's fair.
And more
He's
worried
already
about
seen one Hellfire. There are still 2 Defiles on the list.
also just the damage factor. You know, I think when you push enough damage, you're just way less worried about Hellfire because you have burst options in the deck.
And you are spreading out your threats rather than, you know, kind of making the bigger minions threats again. Although bigger minions in this case are Firefly and Flame Elemental.
Yeah, I think protecting from Defile is wise. It keeps his board from getting cleared down and Bozzzton having the last threat.
You've convinced me, Admirable. I think that was really great from Seiko.
And now times are getting tough.
These are very troubling times.
Oh, yeah.
Even Warlock Kingdom.
You're going to have to play some defense with Twilight Drake, and that's not where you want to be, you know, when your opponent's pretty massively winning on board. This is a hooked reaver turn, no question about it. And then you try to follow up. I guess you could consider the Spellstone in that spot, but...
No, I think you have to keep playing minions on the board. I don't think you can
Substantial.
afford to take a turn to commit to the Spellstone. Very close to lethal. Actually, 2 off right now. It's one of those decks you get down to like 2 life and you're like, I can get there, and then you just never get there.
And then they're like, shields up! Shields
Shields
up!
up.
Plated Beetles.
I don't even know what Hooked Reaver says. I was about to say what Hooked Reaver says, but I don't know what he says.
Pitiful Mortals, I think.
Pitiful Mortals. Is that good? I need
No,
to work on that a little bit more.
It's
inflection.
really bad.
Pitiful Mortals. Was that better? Or was that just the same? I think I just did the same thing over and over.
I think you need to stick to casting.
Pitiful Mortals. Pitiful casting.
Bard just for pressure. Hurts to see, but
At least it's protected by the Taunt Maul onto the Firefly and the Flame Elemental.
just needs something going. You know, you'd love to hero power here, but if you're going to play around Defile, you gotta stay consistent with that line.
the Black Knight.
It's not a chance to getting played here.
I mean, I know, but have you ever Black Knighted a Firefly?
No, I don't really play that much with
This
Black Knight
could be
right
a
now.
world's first.
That's what's truly important.
That's There is a really strong play with the Twilight Drake Sunfury Protector, however. Especially because you're not worried in Odd Paladin about silence. There's not many lists run Ironbeak Owl. Ironbeak Owl is, I would say, not in any list.
The health efficiency of the Drake much more important than the attack efficiency of the Giant.
Yes.
You know, you are sacrificing some cost efficiency there, but, you know, I'm looking at Bozzzton's hand, and to me, the big one seems to be getting to Bone Mare. But, I haven't accounted for how much the clock is affected when you play Mountain Giant versus when you play Twilight Drake. You know, if this affects the clock at all, I'm definitely in favor of the Mountain Giant. A lot of times that's what ends up deciding the play. Oh, also Void Ripper.
I actually think Void Ripper as well is actually very important. I actually think, looking back on it, the Twilight Drake would have been the same health. So the Mountain Giant was just objectively better. It may have been 1 health bigger, but you're right. You're risking Void Ripper as well.
Yeah, it's 1 health superior, but Void Ripper...
But Void Ripper is a massive punish there.
Yeah, and also, it's Mountain Giant. It's 8 instead of 4.
Plus, you're going to want to be dumping cards from your hand, so getting the Mountain Giant down on the board now is much more beneficial, as Twilight Drake will always be for.
Yeah. Bozzzton's definitely in dump the hand mode. We've done enough. Time to play all the cards.
Time to Vine Cleaver. I love me some Vine Cleaver.
Yeah, that hurts right now.
Vine Cleaver can get you out of anything. I firmly believe that.
Well,
have you ever been to a foreign land, a foreign jungle, Admirable? Would you want to be carrying that Vine Cleaver right there? I would.
I don't think I could pick it up.
Could you imagine swinging a sword and then 2 recruits just come by you and go, I got your back?
Do you know how big a 4/3 is? Timberwolf's a 1/1, okay? I don't think that you or I could single-handedly take out a Timberwolf.
I think we've had this argument before.
We have.
I've told you I could take down a Timberwolf.
I don't believe you.
What do you think my stat line is?
Half-half.
It's better than 0-0. I'll take it. It's better than I could take on over 2 turns a hexed minion.
Yeah, if Snow Flipper Penguin comes along, I'm in trouble, okay?
Well, nobody can take on a snow flipper penguin. That's just a.
Well, he just skates away. I mean,
you can't catch him.
you seen him on that ice? He's
Then he
whizzing down
just-
that mountain.
Then he just hooks up with Rexar and gets bigger. He hits the gym. It's the Build-A-Beast gym. I will say though, for Bozzzton right now, he does have access to some, fairly, I'd say, powerful plays. But besides the Spellstone, which he doesn't want to utilize on a 1-1, he doesn't have much heal.
I think he actually needs to use Spellstone here. And I don't think he knows that. Like with Leroy in hand, if you trade off into a 1-1, your opponent gets to clear with Vine Cleaver, and then they Leroy you. And that's the only mode of defense right now
And
is
the question
Spellstone.
is, can you afford to fit in a Life Tap? Maybe you pick up a Shroom Brewer. That way you don't have to use the Spellstone.
Oh, Life Tap. So he tends to heal for sure.
That's what it looks like. It's very heads up.
Yeah, and then also the Twilight Drake lives through the Vine Cleaver, which I think is a super important note.
Not with that Void Ripper.
It's pretty important.
Oh,
Like your
I
opponent
would
has
say-
to Void Ripper, but then you're lethal at that point.
I would say, the Void Ripper is great here. I loved looking at it, but then I realized, you're right. Seiko is at 8 health. That's something you just don't think about as an aggro.
Right,
Like,
and that's-
you
that's-
forget how much damage you're currently taking.
And that's the difference with the Mountain Giant and the Twilight Drake on the previous turn. That 4 extra damage put Seiko into a checkmate scenario if Bozzzton capitalized properly.
I think for Seiko here, he's going to Leroy into this, push that Vine Cleaver face, hit a Hero Power button,
Hope.
and try and end the game with 1-1-1.
Yep.
A little 1-1 that could.
You just hope.
But Bone Mare is going to end the game on the following turn.
Yep. And that's really the thing, is almost all of the damage points for Bozzzton to end the game. Another taunt often ends the game. Just take your pick.
A Hooked Reaver, a Board Clear,
Sun Fury.
Sun
Just
Fury.
everything puts threat onto Seiko, both from a defensive and an offensive perspective here. So Bozzzton going to get through it with the Hellfire on the buff minion, and that buff minion was key because it helped Bozzzton access Hooked Reaver earlier than you normally do. So that's the iteration. If your opponent buffs a minion, you might be free to Hellfire if you've got Hooked Reaver.
It's a good way of thinking about it. I never thought about it that way.
Your life
Typically, I
total
like
just
to
gets
put
pushed.
Yeah, typically I like to play the threat out first, maybe get that Twilight Drake down.
I know that a lot of times when my opponent buffs early with mall parking lot, they're driving away.
Is that what Glowtron's doing right now?
They're-
We're just about to see a Glowtron walk in
See,
here, and we're just gonna leave the desk.
That's
and run.
the thing. It's like he's T1000 when he's just a 1-3. You throw the Blessing of Might on, he's full sprinting down the highway after the truck.
Get to the job.
None will survive.
Shutterwalk Shaman last deck for Bozzzton, and some points of interest here with Seiko's Odd Paladin. King Mukla, I feel like, is a very useful tool against decks that want to try to AoE you early, and quite useful against decks that also just try to use minion pressure to fight you early as well.
Yeah, King Mook was one of those interesting options that you've been seeing bounce around quite a little bit. I believe, some of the first players, at least I have seen, piloting with the King Mukla. Players like Gallon and Purple just really wanted to, have that extra threat.
They brought like 7 Muklas
I
between
know,
two of
right?
them.
Between
to
two of them,
back.
just like one of them. Purple brought in Death Rattle Hunter.
I know.
He just said, you know what? If Katharina pulls this out, it pulls it out. It's a little bit different than Jaime. It's a little bit. I just couldn't believe it. Admirable. I looked at that and I said, you know what, Purple? I've never seen anything that spells purple like this. Look at the Blessing of Might. Look at the aggression on this play. I really like it. I really like it. I like being as aggressive as possible.
Well, talk to me about that.
So, the one thing is, you force out a potential Lightning Storm here, or something like, an Earthshock, but it doesn't really address the rest of the board. It also forces the turn to be insanely awkward. And King Mukla onto this board state would just mean that the bananas would come down, getting some value out of the totems that typically wouldn't. So, King Mukla is going to be hard to play this game. You also want to fit in Hero Power because you have Quarter Creep.
That Prince Keliseth was a massive draw.
You know what's going to be even more massive? This Blessed Maul for attack being drawn by Seiko.
Oh, you're calling it.
I'm calling it. You heard it here first.
Attack is way worse than Divine Shield, right?
Yes, sorry, Divine Shield. Well, it's going to be attack because I called
Well, it's going to be
attack.
taunt because that's how it works, but
Same thing. 3-mana card.
yeah,
Called it.
it's close. Can't win them all. I think the Moogla's looking pretty good here, though.
I mean, to be honest, I think you have to.
Well, you got a 4-1 taunt in the way right now.
Exactly.
You know,
I think that's the reason why it looks as appealing as it does. But giving your opponents bananas is just...
that's bananas.
It's not good for Odd Paladin.
They got to find time to do that, though. You know, the other thing, too, is with Divine Favor in hand and, you know, little action otherwise, Seiko wants to rip that sooner rather than later.
You can Electro Storm Surge the banana.
Oh, that's cool.
That's you know, interactions with Dr. J. Maybe the Moogla's in the deck to force Shadowwalk Shamans to think about their Electro Storm Surge turns. You know how a lot of people would mess up by playing the coin first.
Ah, yes, Chef Electra. Cook up some fried bananas for us.
What's on the menu today, Electra? Banana Storm.
It's no wonder I'm a half-half minion. I don't eat any bananas.
I'm starting to think I'm a quarter minion.
I never eat any bananas.
Got a lot of potassium.
They're not that appealing to me. It's like, ooh, big deal. But he's actually got a banana.
I know. Boston's not monkeying around right now.
That could test the Moogla. That's really funny.
I like it. I like funny things, and this is one of the funniest things I've seen this tournament. I'm not laughing right now, but give me a couple minutes and I might reflect upon it.
Seiko's turn here is just like...
I liked it, to be honest. I thought it was crazy.
Seiko's turn is just kind of weird now. Like, do you trade the Moogla?
Hello?
No way, right? I mean, but they have the other banana.
And that does force value trades out. Oh gosh, this Odd Paladin has been disastrous for Seiko here. He has been struggling to get a win anywhere with it.
And when you Divine Favor, I mean, Bozzzton clearly has shown that they're very willing to play
just
cards.
Not going to have
Stuff.
enough cards in his hand
Yeah.
for this Divine Favor to ever matter, especially when you have to wait till Vine Cleaver. And Seiko is going to be staring down another Gluttonous Ooze. Saw Gluttonous Ooze in the previous game. Another one in order to clear up this Vine Cleaver.
Yeah, when you keep running into those oozes on ladder, when you're playing those wacky weapon decks, and you go, why is everyone running ooze right now? The reason is Odd Paladin.
The reason is Odd Paladin and Druid. Vine Cleaver is one of the best cards to use. Looks like he's just
Shipping
pushing
it
face.
All right. Big decision point here for Bozzzton.
Oh, with the Storm picked up, it changes a little bit, but...
Well, everything here is, I think a viable option sans the the Gluttonous Ooze in this spot. I think you have option for Volcano. I think you have option for Mind Control Tech. I think you have option for Lightning Storm. They all mean different things.
I think it's Mind Control Tech. If you don't hit the Moogla, you value trade.
Oh,
or
boy.
You trade over the Moogla. But if this hits King Moogla...
Oh, I'm nervous.
TC-130 into this locator.
In my opinion, that's how Mind Control Tech should work. I think it should take the lowest attack minion on your opponent's board, and if they're tied for lowest attack, then it rolls the die.
I think Mind Control Tech should actually take the highest stat minion on your opponent's board. And if it's a tie, pick the one with the better effect.
Pick the one.
Mind Control should be a targeted effect.
This is a lot of damage.
I mean, that's kind of what Seiko is banking on here. He doesn't have much gas left in the tank, and he needs to go now.
That's the thing. He could push 13 this turn with Raid Leader Blessingamite. It feels, pretty weak, but are you going to snag the board back here? Like, are you going to get value from your minions?
In that case, do you just go for a level up to be mana efficient? I don't think so, because you have Vine Cleaver.
Well, it's about the damage push, right? So
I think it's a damage push right
here's the thing. If the Vine Cleaver represents lethal in 2 attacks, I think that's where the level up's acceptable. So that would be 11 damage, and then the Vine Cleaver would set up for 2 attacks. So I think you can level up in this spot. And I think that sometimes leaves you in a better position, but that Spell Power Totem is scary.
But if you play the Raid Leader Blessingamite, you do get a couple more cards out of your hand to try and get that Divine Favor next turn and find a little bit more burst damage.
I think there's merits to both sides, and none of them feel very good.
Seiko's in a tough spot, and it's going to come down to this turn, what decision he makes.
So the alternative here would be to level up and fight for board, that's the direction he's going to go with this.
Okay, I can respect this too.
Yeah, I think you still have enough gas to continue to fight here, but now the direction is completely changed. Like when you commit to this line, you're committing to fighting for board for a very long time. So take into account the punishes, You're looking at Healing Rain. You're looking at Lightning Storm. You're looking at Earth Shock.
You're looking at quite a bit of cards that punish you, whereas this has... It's not necessarily, you know, the race to try and end the game. You're kind of prolonging the game, which is not something you want to be doing as Odd Paladin against Shudderwock Shaman. But I think it is more likely that Seiko prolongs this game for a couple more turns and ends the game that way, rather than trying to race right now.
Yeah, move all in. Sometimes you're just going to lose on the spot.
It was a good spot from Seiko.
Yeah, and that's a tough call to make. Gets the Lightning Storm anyway.
That is some respect given. He moved on that 3-3. The banana.
I'm bananing. You not bananing?
I mean, you can just play it to play around Divine Favor. I like it.
It's also, you got a 2-2.
Yeah, that's fairly decent.
I want my 2-2s.
I know about you and your 2-2s over there. You are definitely a knife juggler gamer, but whoa.
Stonehill's not messing around.
No, Stonehill said, you know what, Seiko, this Odd Paladin is getting there.
I mean, that's a potential game changer right there. And Bozzzton just used a Lightning Storm, Glacial Shark right before the Vine Cleaver turn as well.
The funny thing is, though, do you even want to try and Glacial Shard? Because you kind of want them to play Vine Cleaver. Because you do have the Gluttonous Ooze. If you Glacial Shard the face, they're not going to play the Vine Cleaver, which means they're going to make another turn. Whereas you know you want to Gluttonous Ooze that on the following turn.
To me, it's just that he's got the option. You know, the one thing
that is powerful. Options are powerful.
Now that, you know, 2 turns down the road, the board play for Seiko, like playing, you know, to redevelop again, worked out beautifully. You know, Bozzzton's starting to gas out. As you use AoEs, they become much more limited. And suddenly, you know, Bozzzton's just really back in the same spot he was in a couple turns ago. Oh, that's supposed to be a bump first.
Yeah, you bump first because you were at 19. You heal 11. You would then heal 1 on the... There's literally no consequence to bumping first. That, very slight little sequence error.
There is a consequence to not bumping first, and it's that...
Now it's a 2-1. The
yeah,
dice on the 1-1. So
that's a major deal.
And that tells me that he's not going to bump, though.
Well, I don't know. I think
you definitely should have bumped. There was no consequence. You just put a Stonehill to a 1-2. Yikes.
Yeah, big yikes.
Maybe the bump was to really force out that Vine Cleaver. really makes Seiko want to play that Vine Cleaver. He's like, he didn't even bump here. I've got a 1-4. Why not?
I'm pretty sure you're going to play the Vine Cleaver anyways. I'm pretty sure of. I'm not touching that 2-2. I'm kidding. I think you attack it. You have tear him in hand.
I think so as well. Ooh, but Gluttonous Ooze, Mind Control tech. Probably weave in a Hero Power, save the Glacial Shard, potentially another Vine Cleaver. Maybe Bozzzton didn't swing in because he wanted it to be a 1-4 just in case he stole with Mind Control tech. You think he was thinking that far ahead?
Whoa.
Because a 1-4 would be beneficial.
That's like way next level. I think it's possible, but that's like way next level if that's the case. Like that.
Sometimes these players are thinking on that level.
That's going very deep, though.
That is playing.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Okay. That could have been a bit dangerous.
It's still.
That's actually
still
with Sunkeeper and Tarim.
Yeah.
That's pretty dangerous.
But you know, one of the big problems is that Seiko is just he's going to end up losing on board if he doesn't make something happen. Like, is he trading again?
To be honest, I think he's going to keep fighting for this board.
It's
as crazy
it's working
as it seems.
very well right now.
Really well. I mean, because in all honesty, Seiko has not really ran out of gas, as crazy as that is. He's been very limited with his cards, but he has just not ran out of gas.
Odd Paladin does not run out of gas that often. I mean, you got to really pressure him to play a bunch of stuff.
Hero Power.
Yeah.
The Hero Power is just basically just a card every turn in and of itself.
And it's the fact that the threat of the buffs demand trades from your opponent. Like, it requires them to play in a certain fashion. And it's just much tougher than you really think in that situation.
Bozzzton needs to get some kind of card draw going for himself here. It's a start. We'll be able to find probably that second Glacial Shard or, you know, Grumble.
I'm thinking you got to like I'm feeling like Volcano has to be the turn here, right? Like
think
this
so
is
as well.
Volcano Mana Tide, Glacial Shard, or the Volcano plus the Sandbinder.
I don't necessarily think you need a Glacial Shard just yet. I think you can go ahead and afford to get... I think the Mana Tide is probably more beneficial. You'd rather draw a card from the deck rather than an Elemental.
Yeah, and I I think you Glacial Shard because I want a 3/2 in play.
That's fair.
I want to keep battling. I'm losing.
I was thinking about the Sandbinder, but now that I've seen, Bozzzton go for the Mana Tide Totem, I think it's, much more beneficial to also get the Glacial Shard alongside with it. So I like this from Bozzzton.
This turn is...
Yeah, this is not the most appealing of Odd Paladin turns I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of Odd Paladin turns. I'm an exclusive Odd Paladin gamer, and watching this hurts me a little bit.
Give the minions taunt.
Play a Wraith
Leader.
just to get cards out of their hand.
It does threaten the Mana Tide in this instance. This is quite funny to me that if the Mana Tide ends up trading, there's two angles of attack that are trying to fight back against it.
Could potentially hex the Raid Leader, just so the Mana Tide is healthy. Would also take a value trade with the Glacial Shard. That's a potential.
The thing about it is your opponent, they played the Stonehill and they haven't played the taunt. They've just been hanging on to it the whole time. So you start thinking of some bigger stuff. Like sometimes you're like, maybe it's just Giant Mastodon or whatever.
I mean, to be honest, though, if you go for Sandbinder Hex, you get 2 value trades, you draw 2 cards, and the only thing they're left with is a 0/1.
I tend to, when I'm playing Shudderwalk, I try to play 2 cards in a turn, and I try to spend as much mana as I can. That's really been my 2 protocols. And now that Grumble's drawn off of this, the Hex is honestly looking very appealing.
I like it.
You preserve extra minions, you take away more, and you have Grumble set up to generate even more value while the Mana Tide's still cranking out card draw, and I think that is the turning point where Bozzzton might be home free.
But this Sun Camper Tarim turn is going to be quite the turn. With Lightning Storm picked up, Spell Damage Totem gets rolled. Whew. Okay, we still got a game on our hands. It's quite scary looking right now. Could potentially draw Hagatha from Farsight as well.
Wow. It's just surprising to me the games have been this close. Like, it feels like one player's about to run away with it. And
That's what happens when you have 2 high-level players like this. They just understand the matchups in and out, and they keep playing to, their outs.
Not too shabby, just something to add. Remember,
Yeah.
it's Keleseth buffed right now.
Oh, this needs to be a spell damage totem.
It doesn't need to be. Sometimes you can just
I don't know, Admirable. That's,
get the
that's
outcomes.
quite a bit of damage.
I think he's fine. This is fine.
He commits the storm.
Yeah, you're supposed to. Yeah, look, you killed off 2 things.
All right.
That's fine.
Call it a day.
It's not the greatest, but
It was an average day of work.
you got to do something. Keep battling.
Keep fighting for the board. This Divine Favor may finally draw a card.
Yes, Arcade Intellect.
My
Prerequisite.
favorite.
Play the rest of your hand. But
I
you
love
don't
when
mind.
my Arcane Intellects make me play the rest of my hand.
I just like when I can play the rest of my hand. That's usually the situation I'm in.
Okay, Void Ripper. Void Ripper does help against a potential Volcano later on.
I mean, this board's getting cleared out.
Seiko is just still fighting for board turn after turn.
Rightfully so.
And I can't blame him. Because right now, Bozzzton is just running out of cards.
Whoa. Okay, so that's an interesting one to me that the 3/1 doesn't trade in. So the major implication I'm seeing is Hagatha. Like
That is true. Hagatha would be a punish for this.
Here's the thing. Seiko, I think, is, he can be quite confident Hagatha's not in hand.
Yes.
But do you need to play around that top deck? Like, that's a major draw if that occurs.
So if Hagatha gets top decked and played here, obviously it would be, very strong.
Hagatha would have been back-breaking.
But the thing is, he does have Lost in the Jungle. There are potential very strong draws in the form of second level up. Maybe he feels like he can still win through Hagatha if it gets played here. Or maybe he's just going all in saying, you know what, if you got Hagatha, I can't win.
Yeah, like, you need to
That's
draw Hagatha
probably more
now.
likely what it is.
I'm going to push some damage. You need Hagatha now. But you know, this was a damage push of 4.
There's still a Glacial Shard in the deck, right?
That's a good question. I believe there is one.
Can go Grumble, replay the Sandbinder, draw the Glacial Shard, then play the Glacial Shard onto the Tarim.
The major issue here is just the damage output at this point. You know, Seiko has got a lot on board, and you're starting to dwindle. You have Healing Rain to, you know, buy you maybe a turn or so.
I mean, to be honest, Shutterwalk being drawn at this point might just be enough. There are MC techs in the pool. There'll be both Glacial Shards in the pool.
I think there's a number of ways that Bozzzton can still get out of it, but you got to get out of it.
Do you think about hero powering? We're forgetting the Glacial Shard. I guess one did get played earlier on that we forgot about.
I don't recall it being played, was all.
Thank you for Seiko here. You probably have to ignore this board state and just keep pushing face.
It's really scary. Grumble's probably the scariest one to ignore.
It's scary to ignore, but if they play out the Shutterwalk and they whiff, they would still have to commit the 1 extra mana to Grumble.
It's true. You just got to go.
Seiko's really thinking on this. And the question is, even if he pushes everything face, if he doesn't draw some kind of burn on the following turn in the form of either a level up or a raid leader, is he going to be able to get there if he pushes everything face on the next turn? I mean, I guess he's going to have to find out and see.
That's the, if you're not killing the Grumble, that's the play.
Okay, Admiral. Hear me out.
Oh, I already know where you're going. Go on.
You know where I'm going? I'm looking at a Healing Rain.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a Hex onto a 5/6.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a trade with the Sandbinder.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at an 8/8 going face.
I'm looking at Zola the Grumble as well.
This is the alternative for hexing your own 2/4 and Zoling the 2/4. You know, just really put that taunt wall in the way.
Sometimes you got to game 2.
I've actually seen that before.
Oh,
try
yeah.
and live. It's definitely a play.
At times it matters. It just, you know, when that iteration's there, it's there. When it's not.
But I honestly think if Bozzzton goes for this line of play where the Hex comes out and this 5/6 and the value trade comes out, or the trade comes out, this Grumble needs to go face. Because it makes... I don't think Bozzzton is beating a top deck level up. And if he's not beating it, he needs to push this damage face.
I don't think he's really just beaten anything at this point.
I want to see this go face.
I want to see it go face because I think the pressure is very relevant. Now the question is, what costs you something when you don't go face there? It doesn't Zola the Grumble.
And the way I feel about this is now it just gives Seiko another turn to push everything face, and Bozzzton isn't threatening lethal. So, which would force him to clear yet again, and Bozzzton is weighing out the draws in his deck. And right now, the most 2 impactful ones are Hagatha and Shutterwalk.
Yeah.
But if he whiffs on either of those, it's essentially a dead card.
I agree with you. I think the pressure here, you know, you bought 3 extra points of health. Your opponent, you know, would have been looking at this and gone, wait a minute, I need to clear this Grumble off. You'd have the 3/3 Zola in play. You'd be threatening lethal yourself.
It technically would have bought you more health because you would have to clear at least the Sandbinder, which would buy you 4 health. I mean, he may have to go for it now. Even gets the Taunt Totem to Zola the Taunt Totem, replay the Taunt Totem as an extra defense. This needs to go face.
Well, I'm looking at Zola and the Life Drinker.
Does that set up lethal in the following turn? It does.
If this Zola would have hit the Grumble, he would have had a 1-cost Grumble with this Life Drinker drawn on the next turn.
Oh, and you could do the Grumble chain.
Yeah.
The only unfortunate thing is if you Zola the Grumble now...
Sorry, it would have been a 6-cost Grumble. My apologies.
Yeah, so the first one would have been 6 cost, then you get the 1-cost one, and you then loop it. I think the Zola should most likely come out onto the Taunt Totem here because...
Taunt Totem, you're 16!
But you're trying to protect the minions on board. So if you don't copy one of those, the Grumble and the Sandbinder are both going to die to a value trade.
Wow.
So you need to do this to protect those.
This is nuts.
To be honest, I think this game should have been over with Bozzzton going face earlier. And Seiko whiffs again. Back and forth.
This is not the time to be drawing one-cost minions. Oh, he's threatening lethal on board. Wait, that's game.
No, he's going to kill off the Grumble.
Oh, it's a 3/4 Acarus.
It is a 3/4 Acarus veteran, so he's going to put the Acarus into one of the taunt totems.
That
clear out
doesn't
the
even
other
matter.
one.
It was just an Acarus general. In my head, just everything registered as a 1/1. I was like, it's all 1/1s. It's a 1/1 deck. And not playing the Glowtron last turn and Hero Powering instead, you know, that kind of cost something too, because this Magnetic would have been able to come out and contest the minion. This game's been very weird.
I just really wish I would have seen Bozzzton go a bit more aggressive, to be honest.
Well, we're past that point.
Yep, Boston's got to keep playing for that control game plan. And Hagatha would just be a beautiful rip off the top here. Acolyte of Pain.
Only facing down 10 damage, though. Like, I think Bozzzton has the onus of, you know, potentially being able to push here. Do you play around a top deck, or do you, push?
I think the way Bozzzton has been playing this game is he needs to kill these Silverhand recruits. Because level up ends the game. So he needs to kill the Silverhand recruits.
One of the level ups
now.
is gone, though. That's a 1 in 10 right now.
But I think Bozzzton is weighing it out, saying, you know what, my average draw, especially with Acolyte on the board now, is going to be stronger. So he is going to keep trading. He is already committed to this game plan. He needs to follow it through. I mean, I think he should have gone a little bit more aggressive earlier, but that's, I mean, the game plan's working right now.
I feel like he's had so many opportunities to get aggressive. So many opportunities. I even think this might have been one. Like, what? The trading doesn't do anything here.
Corridor Creeper. It doesn't even matter. Just play it as 7 mana. It's reducing it.
So now Bozzzton has reduced the board position to very little. He's going to lose his entire board. There's no pressure back on Seiko. Like, if Bozzzton just goes face there, Seiko's got to trade. I think this
But
has
if he
been...
top decks level up, it's lethal.
Look, if you can hit a half-court shot, you got me.
I think at this stage, though, I think earlier was the turn to go face. I think now that Bozzzton is committed to trading, he needs to follow it through, especially with Acolyte. He can get 2 draws for one of those very impactful cards. That's not it, though. This is just the slowest battle
I'm getting nervous.
of measly minions.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 16 health on board right now.
5 cards left in the deck for Bozzzton. Can draw the rest of his deck if he does decide to go for the Volcano here.
But if you Volcano and you draw Shutterwalk, can't play it.
I think you still do it. Oh, boy.
He also could have traded off the 2/1 to create a Volcano that clears everything, correct?
I'm pretty sure this clears everything.
Does it?
I don't think he would have gone face for that damage. Oh, it actually doesn't.
It's because there's Sarnite Chain Gang in the deck, and there's also Hagatha in the deck. So, you know, if he whiffs on it, it's just really not sweating it. You know, there's no cards hand for Seiko,
But we fight.
and that's going to wrap this, I think.
Yeah,
Seiko
Seiko's just
knows.
going to go ahead and give it up.
Wow.
What a series, Admirable.